WLRN Video presents.
Welcome to another WLRN interview, extended interview. This time my guest is Jessica Gonzalez. She's the founder of the TERF Collective. And she's also, and welcome Jessica to the show.
TERF's up, Thistle.
Yeah, it's good to say. She's an anti-imperialist, a separatist, radical feminist, doing what she can to hasten the arrival of the revolution. She seeks to leverage the untapped potential of distributive social networks to connect women across platforms. She is also interested in guerrilla approaches to subversion, especially by conceiving of ways in which women can engage in simultaneous actions remotely with the aim of exerting system-wide pressure that cannot be ignored and is hard to dissipate. Jessica currently hosts semi-weekly chat sessions with gender-critical women and radical feminists from all over the world called TERF Nights. There she joins together decades-long activists and those newly peaked in wide-ranging conversations. They discuss their personal struggles, gender ideology, women's rights, protest actions, and participants are invited to imagine a future free of the impositions and requirements of the patriarchy. So welcome, Jessica. You lay out quite a vision in that paragraph. It's really amazing, but I want to just start with where you're from, where you grew up, and how you got started in radical feminist activism.
Okay, so I'm originally from Queens, New York. That's where I was born to Dominican parents. I spent my very early childhood in the Dominican Republic, returned here to begin school, like a lot of children of immigrants do. Made my way through to and through law school, where I attended law school at the University of Buffalo in Buffalo, New York. I returned to New York City after that, and that was at the peak of the subprime mortgage crisis. I'd actually trained to be a securities lawyer. I wanted to work in compliance. I just wanted a very normal life in compliance, where I could just earn a living and then maybe do not radical activism, just general activism on the side. I wasn't a radical yet, but it was graduating at the peak of the subprime mortgage crisis that led me to radicalism, because that fall was Occupy Wall Street. And I found myself a regular at Occupy Wall Street. Every day I was taking the train in from Queens with my little dog in tow to be there for what I thought.
2011, 2012.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cool.
That's right. To be there for what I thought I thought it would break the system. I really thought it had the potential to do that. And I still carry forward a lot of the ideas that I picked up from that. So after that, I had determined, the system is not working and I don't want to be a part of it. What I thought I could do by helping to fight Wall Street from within, by working in compliance, I just realized that was not the move. I realized even compliance, you're just, it's just a show. The whole thing is just a show, and you're not really there to prevent anybody from doing anything evil. You're just there to kind of mollify, not sure who exactly. So yeah, but after that, Occupy Wall Street died down and things went kind of dead a little bit until Bernie Sanders, right? There was a dead time where things died down. And so when he came back again, I thought, okay, we can, bum rush now, right? And so that's why I was.
So you felt the burn.
Well, I thought I did. Until I realized that a lot of us have come to realize after the fact that Bernie Sanders was only there to placate and to help dissipate any radical energy that remained in the system and to funnel us back, feels like, into the Democratic Party, into its machinery, via its different tentacles, via the Working Families Party, via Democrat Socialists of America, which was, co-opted that summer after he ran, and all these different sketchy things that happened. So after that, I realized, no, there is no way to fight the system through electoral politics, and it was just a pipe dream. But after that, a lot of conversations were being had around who do we censor, like who do we need to give power to in order to accomplish the end of really dismantling, basically the white supremacist corporatocratic patriarchy. And the answer kept coming up, well, Black Indigenous women. And this is going to lead to how I peaked and how I came to radical feminism, is because in a lot of those conversations, I saw that whenever somebody would talk about, censoring Black and Indigenous women, somebody would always have to kick in, and femmes, they would call them. I said, I didn't say femmes. I don't know what femmes is. I know what women are. I know that they are the sex underclass, and I think that they are the ones to be centered in a struggle to liberate all people from these oppressive systems. And so I kept having that back and forth, and then I realized I really need to stop and think more about this. I really need to have a way to fight this, because it really was being pushed that feminine men were just as oppressed as we are, and that just was not the case. So that's really what led to my peaking around 2017, I guess I would say, because I recently just looked around in my own files and things, and I saw that I had actually put up a Medium article back in 2017. So I peaked before then and realized what an issue this was. Then I started just digging around in Facebook groups, articles. Of course, I ran into Feminist Current. I ran into all the TRAs that were on the level with acknowledging biology, so Miranda Yardley, etc. So really just started binging on videos like that, started binging on Magdalene Burns, started binging on Kathy Brennan. And that's how I came to what radical feminist consciousness I have today. It just went on from there. The ideas just all line up. It all makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And then recently we met in DC for the Women Picket DC event. And it seems like the TERF Collective formed shortly thereafter. Am I correct? Was that the impetus? Was that your inspiration, that experience?
Well, it didn't hurt. And a lot of the women that I met from Women Picket DC, I was able to pull in, because once you know these women, you've met them in real life, you've stood shoulder to shoulder with them in space and done activism, those friendships, they live on. But actually, the idea to have Feminist Collective came to me, I don't remember it being inspired by anything in particular. I just remember writing a post, and yeah, this is maybe 1 month after Women Picket DC, 1.5.
So April.
Where April, maybe May. So it's very new.
Yeah, I mean, because today is June. What is today?
Yeah, it's not even 2 whole months.
Right.
I just wrote a post.
It seems longer, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I know. Because so much happens.
Yes.
So much happens.
So tell us about, you wrote a post about 1.5 months ago.
Yeah. I wrote a post just saying, I think we should have weekly TERF meetings. I don't even know why now I thought that. I just wanted to chat.
Did you write it? Did you write it on your own personal?
Yeah, my own personal page. And a lot of women came through yeah, let's do it. I'm in. But I just you know, once I think of something, I'm going to move forward. Like if I think it's a decent idea, I'm going to move forward. And if anybody wants to help enlighten the approach on that idea and shift it, adjust it, refine it, let's do it. But I'm moving forward. So boom, like that night or the next, that night or the next night, I came home and I threw up the secret TERF Collective group and just started pulling in TERFs from my list. And off
How
we
many
went.
did you pull in that first pull?
That first night must have been like maybe just 100 or so.
I was in that.
100. Yeah, you were.
Am I
only pulled
one of the top TERFs up on the list, right? Top TERF.
Yeah. TT, top TERF. That's right. Yeah. That's you, Thistle. Everybody.
wait, TERF. It's hanging like this. TERF's up. All right. But anyway, so 100 TERFs you brought in that first day, and you just let them loose, right? It was like
there's still no rules in that group to this day. There's no written rules in that group to this day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but there have been some conversations in that group, and there have probably been conversations that I'm not privy to because, you know, I'm there, but I'm just kind of, you know, doing a lot of other things outside of it and supportive and cross-pollinating with other projects that I'm involved in.
Right.
And so I've only been able to go to one TERF time, and it was fantastic. And, you know, you say that it's a free-for-all, but that night you were trying on limiting everyone's introduction to 30 seconds, I think it was, or maybe it was 60.
45 that night.
45, okay. But I could feel the atmosphere of the past TERF nights or whatever, and just I feel that there's a lot of places where conversations are happening, both on Facebook, like written in the comments, and there's been some tension, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes in the comments. And then there's also these conversations that are more like what you and I are doing, that are face-to-face video chats. Can you talk about like those two arenas and aspects of how women in the TERF Collective are communicating with each other?
Well, if we want to go back to part of the inspiration for even having weekly meetings, I think was partly that. I think was my recognizing how we could benefit from sitting in sisterhood with each other, and how face-to-face conversations are so much different from sitting there just bombarding each other with paragraphs of text. Most importantly, you don't say things to each other's faces that you feel you are emboldened to say over text. So the conversations just take a completely different tone, a different rhythm. That isn't to say that difficulty and tension doesn't arise in TERF night, in our face-to-face group meetings, but there's less opportunity for crosstalk. There's, you know, we take turns speaking, we give each other our respect. There's more room for analyzing. You don't get to just call somebody something and, you know, the dozen or 24 other sisters on the call aren't sitting there looking at you. Could see the look on their faces, like, what is she? Where are you coming from? With why do you have to? You know, so it's a completely different vibe. Like,
and how many show up at these TERF nights on the average?
So on average, we get, I would say, around 15. The lowest attended one I've ever held so far had 11, and then the highest attended one, I mean, it's gone over 24, I think, that night. So we get a decent turnout.
I have a question, because this is an interview that's going to be publicly aired. Are those women, is their identity private? Or could I ask you questions like, oh, who are some of you? I mean, I've admitted that I'm in the TERF Collective, but you're not going to name off those 100 women, right? You don't do that. Is that part of it? So there's no rules. It's sort of a free-for-all in some ways, but yet that's maybe some etiquette. There's TERF etiquette, right? Maybe we should get a zine called TERF.
We could, yeah, I'm down. Don't give me a good idea, Thistle, because it's done next week, bro.
Oh my God, well, TERF
I'm writing this down. TERF etiquette. Yeah. I mean, I thought, so far, what I've been using as TERF etiquette is radical feminist analysis. We speak in analysis.
Is that, being with your law background, doesn't that need to be spelled out in a set of agreements, in a set of rules? Why have you chosen, Jessica, you with your law degree, have you chosen to start TERF Time and TERF Collective in this kind of like, you're just turfing the wave and allowing the women to guide and steer how it goes, and it's kind of a free-for-all. Like, I've never looked, again, I'm not following it as closely as you are, but I've never seen a rule that says, oh, don't reveal the identities of the members of the TERF Collective. I've never seen a rule. Is there one? Or is it just etiquette? It's just etiquette.
It's just etiquette. It's just etiquette. Because women know, in order to get into TERF Collective, the group can't be found by search. It's hidden, and the members list is hidden. So nobody outside of it will ever know who's in it unless we tell you. But that fact alone, that it's hidden and it's private and it's invite only. 2 sisters on the inside have to vouch for you if you're on the outside. And 2, I have the right, it's right in my questions I ask, to call on you to participate in a video call so that I can verify your identity. I also will mine sister, potential candidate sisters' profiles and make sure this person's on the level.
I didn't go through that vetting. I had already been vetted.
You were part of, we've known each other for a little bit now.
We have known each other, but I could have gone in there and I could have been I'm just put it on WLRN. Oh, the TERF Collective, and these are the participating members, and they're coming here, and it's so cool. Come join because so and so is in it too, and and yet I don't know. It is just this kind of feeling of sisterhood and that boundary, and knowing that we need to protect our spaces, right? And yet, I don't know, without rules and regulations and it being a free-for-all, I just wonder if at some point it'll frazzle, like so many things in America, kind of wind down, like the Occupy movement. There just comes a time where people may be given in a situation where it's more direct democracy and we're trying to use consensus decision making. I don't know if that's something that you're trying to employ with the TERF Collective. Certainly the word collective sort of implies that, but allowing women to just make it up as they go along is kind of the feeling that I'm getting.
Yeah.
How can you make that work, especially with your law degree? And don't you see at some point that it's just going to crash and burn or something,
I don't think it'll crash and burn. I think eventually it will eventually fizzle out. So let's enjoy it while we can.
Okay.
Let's make the most of it while we can. I'm just riding the wave. I'm not worried about it. Right now we're having a great, we're still on the way up right now. Yes. Sure. And I don't want to be tied to this endeavor, this project. It will serve us for as long as it serves us. I don't want neither any of the women in it nor myself to be sitting around trying to serve it. It's a vehicle to help us come together, give each other good ideas, give each other support, give each other resources, back each other's projects. And when we shed that skin, baby, we shed that skin, and that's it,
I think that's a wonderful approach to social organizing and activism, and gives you a lot of flexibility. And in that scenario, it's not a crash and burn. There's not an explosion of horizontal hostility and all these women leave feeling drained. It's just, where's the next wave? Because we're turfing.
Yeah, that's it.
We're turfing, right?
Yeah.
And I love that image. And you know what? I've never felt prouder to be an American since I just, the whole Turfing USA.
Yeah, Turfing USA is so cute. It's so cute.
And when I looked up the chords and the lyrics the other day, because I was like, will you record Turfing USA? Maybe.
Yes.
Yes. The lyrics, the lyrics are so like,
oh,
I don't know.
Oh my God.
We'd have to change. And that it's that political philosophy of being able to catch a wave and let it go when its course is through, and no hard feelings. You know what we say on the playground? I'm a preschool teacher. So they beg you and they cry to get on the swing, and they want you to push them on the swing. And so you push them for a really long time on the swing, and then it's over, right? And then they stop and they cry and cry, and they're like so sad, and you're like, don't be sad that it's over. Be glad that it happened.
Yeah.
Celebrate. It happened, you know?
But that's the thing, you know, I mean, once this one's done, there's going to be another one. And hopefully it'll be that we leave this one because another even better wave came along. Like, I'll ditch this with everybody else when the better thing comes along. There's no problem. But in the meantime and in between time, we're incubating some good ideas there right now. And I'm living for it.
Yeah. And so, you know, women are going to be watching this interview. What if they think, oh, I'm a TERF. I don't know about this group. I want to get involved. How can they find you? And
well, I did set up a public facing group called TERF Collective. So it's just called like that, TERF Collective.
.com
No. I mean, there's TERFcollective.com. I set that up because we made these flyers. We can talk about that in a few moments, but just to answer the question right now about, you know, women that may be watching this and want to get involved, sure, they can email me at terfcollective@gmail.com. But if they're trying to be in our Facebook web or whatever, please go to search in Facebook groups, TERF Collective, and there's a public facing one there now. Because as I mentioned, getting into the secret one is a little bit of vetting, and I think sisters will understand. But if you come to the public one and you just throw up a post, throw a DM to admin or whatever, you know, we can start the conversation. I want everybody there. I want everybody at my party, you know? Yeah,
right on. I have to say that one TERF time that I went to was a lot of fun. It was
lit, right?
Now, what about trans activists? Like, my cat is meowing in the background and she's just brought her toy to me. So hang on one second.
Sure.
So what about trans activists? You know, the more public you become with TERF time, obviously, or the TERF Collective, I should say, maybe TERF time, you're not really advertising as much publicly. You're advertising the TERF.
Yeah, that's once you get to the group, that's when you know about it. Okay. There are some women outside the group that get invited. Women I meet on WHRC or other things, but those are women that are also vetted, right? Because I've met them somewhere, I've seen them, I've spoken to them, we've engaged in an action in this vein. And so that's what qualifies them to join in the meetings.
But when and if trans activists go through this public Facebook group, you know, and complain to Facebook and shut down, I mean, do you think that's going to happen? And if it does happen, do you have any plan B?
Well, my understanding of when they shut down groups, I don't know that calling a group TERF Collective is enough to get it shut down. I would have assumed that had more to do with the content of the group. And so far, public facing TERF Collective has literally no content.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you know, once people start joining, they may start putting up content. But I think TERFs in general know how to act at this point to not get themselves zucked. So, you know, hopefully we'll have that. If we have to create another iteration with a slightly different, a slightly different character or something, we'll do it. I don't know. That's just the nature of being censored on the internet.
Right. That's the nature of being on the internet and finding the waves and turfing.
Yeah, that's all.
You know, you paddled out there on your board and a lot of women followed you, you know, and you found a wave and we're turfing now. And wouldn't you say that the majority of the TERFs that come to TERF time are North American women?
Yeah, they really are. At first, we had a slightly more international crowd. I mean, we still do have a couple of sisters from the UK that come. I don't want to call out individual countries because we only have like one or two sisters from these other individual countries, and they're interesting places, but I don't want to call them out because I don't want to risk
Yeah.
outing the sister, right? So, no, yeah, we have some members that come in from elsewhere. I think maybe, frankly, that may have more to do with the times that I'm available to host, even though I host 2 meetings a week, one in the evening on Sunday, Eastern time, one in the morning, like right after this, I host another one, but that's still, those times are still just not super accessible to women, even in the UK, because the one I'm about to host once we get off this call will be like 4 p.m. London time, and they're either at work, commuting home from work. The other call is in the middle of the night for them. So it's difficult. Sometimes I will hold an ad hoc impromptu call, and we're still trying to see if we can find ways to accommodate more women on the calls. Certainly, I have not copyrighted this idea. If there are sisters in the UK that want to hold their own meetings, please do so. I invite women in the group to use the rooms feature in the group to hold their own meetings there. So even if I'm not available, if any sister's interested in joining the group and throwing up her own room to initiate her own video call, that is welcome and encouraged.
And how many women are in the current incarnation of your TERF Collective?
Oh man, I want to say, oh man, I don't want to lie. I'll tell you exactly right now.
Oh, okay.
236 right now.
That's a good number.
That's a decent number.
And
it's a decent number for a group that's been around for like 8 weeks.
Yeah. And the main way that you communicate online that's not a chat meeting is in the Facebook group, right? There's no listserv.
No,
not
at this time.
Because and I think that's cool. Like, I really like that there's no bylaws, that this is a wave that we've caught, and that we're just getting to know each other, and that you're making it work. Talk about the meetings and facilitating the meetings. Are you always, well, actually you just said that women are free to, are they taking advantage of that, or are they leaning on you?
A couple have, but yeah, right now they are more leaning on me. And they are just showing up to the specified
because
times.
You create, from my experience, if the other ones are similar, it just feels like you're in your living room you're like in your living room with a bunch of sisters, relaxed and just sort of popcorning it, and there's you there to make sure that everyone gets a turn, and
that's a turn.
No one's over talking anyone else and stuff. But it's just a very friendly, very informal, and it feels off, to tell you the truth, it feels a lot like meeting up with women in the woods of Mishfest.
Nice.
You might just suddenly find yourself with 10 or 12 women who don't know each other that well, or they're getting to know each other, and they're meeting up, because Mishfest, if you remember, did you ever go?
I never got to go.
Oh, bummer. Well, but it's rising again. You can catch a few TERF waves over there in Michigan this summer. Holy yes, there's going to be some TERF in USA and Michigan this summer. Yes.
It's TERF Girl Summer.
It's TERF Girl Summer. Exactly.
This is TERF Girl Summer, by the way.
So, but getting back to, activism and working the way that we're working, and not having it be an official group, but rather just allowing things to brew and bubble up, and how, what I saw, and how much it's like Mishfest. I saw a picture after going to Mishfest of side by side on social media of a rock and roll concert, of a boy band rock and roll concert in the summertime outside in like a field, and then side by side with the night stage field at Mishfest. And the rock and roll stage field was filled with trash, you know, and the Mishfest night stage field was like all clean and, you know, looking nice and stuff like that. And I feel like that's something about Mishfest and something about women that I think you're embodying in those TERF nights, where women are on their best behavior because we're in the woods, we're with each other, we're away from the men, we don't have such and it's informal and it's social. It's not like we have, I mean, obviously but political goals and projects can bubble up from those social relationships, but in my activism, the social relationship comes before the political organizing. And so, I mean, I've had some pretty bad experiences trying to, where the political organizing came first, and there wasn't that personal connection, or maybe just not enough or something, but solidarity was absent. And what I'm getting, the vibe I'm getting from the way that you're organizing, Jessica, and that I felt when I saw you in Washington, D.C. as well, you know, and you were just observing a lot there.
It really was.
What we call in sociology, a participant observer, you know, because there was like the party room. And you were not at the center of the party. You were not the life of the party. You were looking at, you were seeing the energy that we were all conjuring. And I feel like you started thinking, oh, I can harness this. I can bring us all together in this way that's informal and social, enjoyable. We get to know each other, and then projects come from that, you know?
We can't travel to DC every week. There isn't something to go to every week. A lot of us don't even have the resources. Like, I could go because I was so close. If it were just a little bit farther, even I wouldn't have been able to make it exactly. But why can't we have what we had, that chemistry that we had in DC that weekend? Why can't we have it every week? Why can't we have it twice a week, every week from home?
You are listening to WLRN.
Right. And that's what you're doing.
That's what I'm trying to do.
I'm so, I mean, and I can't stress enough how important it is in political organizing for us to bond with one another and have fun. Just have fun and let loose. That girl over there said this homophobic, racist, imperialist statement. You know, it's like, okay, maybe she did make a mistake. Maybe she said something completely heinous. Are you going to cancel her and hate her forever? You know, like, people are dynamic. We're all learning. I don't know. I just get a great vibe from you, Jessica. I think you're doing really important.
We have on those calls been able to call women in for things that are perceived, let's call them a faux pas. Right?
Yeah.
And we use the opportunity to explain, this is why this is not taken well, or this is why maybe this is something to be considered in your communication, in your analysis, because that's something else, you know. I mean, it all really comes back to an analysis. Like, that's what radical feminism
and what
is.
you're totally, but what you're also describing there is constructive criticism.
Sure,
which is very different than a pile-on.
Yeah.
That there's an underlying feeling and cushion of sisterhood. And so if a sister is out of line and says something heinous, or whatever it is that she does, she makes a faux pas. Instead of knocking her down and out, there's a calling her in, and
and there's always supporting, you know.
Yes.
There's always an acknowledgement that perhaps you didn't realize.
But that can be really scary and also difficult to facilitate if you're not trained, I think, as like a social worker or a professional. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't agree.
You don't agree? Cool. Okay, talk about that.
Well, I mean, how many therapists and social workers and people in those helping fields, you know, that are extremely troubled and problematic?
Okay.
So
all right.
you know.
Okay.
a lot of credentials and training don't necessarily yield expertise. But what the thing about TERF Collective is, you know, the one rule which is unspoken, or it's spoken but not commemorated as an actual rule, is common sisterhood and in good faith. And I think we can talk about, hey, I felt what you said or did did fail to acknowledge racial forces. Without, who needs a degree for that, bro? Like, you know, women know how to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need special intervention, special credentialing from the patriarchy or book learning to speak to each other.
That's cool. And or a set of bylaws and explicit rules, you know, documents.
There are probably some places for bylaws and explicit rules. Like you and I would say, became best acquainted through meetings we've been participating in for Green Party.
Yeah.
And in those structures, maybe bylaws are necessary, right? They give bounds of behavior.
That's a political party.
Right.
And so that, to me,
right. So I don't want to discount that there may not be a place.
Exactly, especially you having studied law. There's definitely a place.
But I am an anarchist now. So
well,
so I believe, you know, voluntary agreed upon bounds for behavior.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a place.
Sure. And as you know, it's funny because a wave that dissipates at some point because you're going on to some other wave is very different than, and sometimes, you know, people catch waves and then they solidify it and they create documents and guidelines and rules and it becomes an organization.
Sure.
And I think that can be a good trajectory for an organization. I'm thinking of WLRN, you know, like it was a wave, but then I saw the value of doing you know, documenting the feminist movement every month from the vantage point of a topic that we're covering every month. I saw the value of that. And so then we created an organization that now has rules and, you know, a process of to become a member, you have, it's like applying for a job. You have your resume, there's an interview, there's a probation period, you know, and so it's just kind of interesting having studied sociology and how people come together with these different approaches and ways. And like you said, you don't need to have a social work degree or be a therapist to feel people, just to feel them and allow them to be, and yet also intervene in that with that sisterhood that's the underlying feeling, to intervene when a sister does kind of get out of line. And you know, you're not kicking her out, you're not canceling her, you're not piling on. And I am really curious to see that work through time. And I hope with all of my heart that if and when the TERF Collective, you know, moves on, that it's not because somehow a pile-on happened, or you know what I mean? Because the human being, especially in today's world, I think with all the social media and the narcissism and stuff like that, we are a really harsh creature in a way. Like we really, I don't know, like I've just seen some people be extremely hostile and harsh. And when I say people, I mean women in the feminist movement. And so, and as a facilitator, you know, how do you prevent that? Because you want to call on the higher self that's, you know, or at least this is how I feel about every human being, is that there is goodness there. How do I call that in? How do I bring that goodness out and allow the rest to fall away in a way that accepts the person, you know? And so I think being able to have a sociological point of view, which it seems that you do, and a big heart, and helps you to mitigate. Twice a week is a lot, girl.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time face to
time.
face. And I was in a group, a feminist activist group, that, wow, whoa, during COVID, we were meeting on Friday nights. Whoa, it was so enmeshed and so competitive and like based on tearing each other down instead of lifting each other up.
That's surprising.
Oh, but I don't know that it is surprising. I don't find that surprising at all.
Yeah.
I don't find it surprising. I think that it's extremely typical in groups.
Can I ask, what were you meeting for a specific purpose? Did you have specific goals in mind? Does that change the dynamic? Yeah, that could be it.
And I believe we put the cart before the horse. And I think that was a big problem with that group, is that it acted without bylaws, and there was a real competitive edge to it, because it was, I don't know what the because is, to tell you the truth, other than Phyllis Schlafly and the, women's inhumanity towards women. And once you get into higher echelons of power, or perceived power, because male power is not what we want and covet, right? We want our own female power, which to me is a different kind of power, which obviously I think of as shared power and empowerment, lifting each other up. But did I get that author right? Am I right? Phyllis Schlafly?
I don't know. I'm not familiar. Do you want me to look it up?
Yeah, look her up. Woman's Inhumanity towards women. And it's about internalized misogyny and, that how women do start behaving like men when they're trying to use the master's tools to tear down the master's house, if that makes any sense, to quote
Phyllis Schessler.
Okay, sorry.
Schessler.
I said her name wrong. Okay, Schessler. I think Schlafly is like some conservative lady, isn't she, from way back, or didn't she? Anyway, I don't know. But the women's inhumanity towards women is really good about internalized misogyny. And then also Audre Lorde's quote, "The master's tools will never tear down the master's house," I think also is relevant to what I saw in this. Is another thing is it was a closed group of just 6 of us, and which is a weird number. And we were meeting.
Yeah, that's a difficult number.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, it was, whew. Anyway,
I'm sorry. Sorry. Damn.
But and so then every woman has a place in the movement, right? We're all in the movement. Like any woman can be in the movement. I how they say, like, all that's required is that you're female and you're aware of it and you want to lift the female sex up and liberate us, from male tyranny. That's all that you need is to join the women's movement. That's how I like to look at it.
Yeah, I have no explanation for, well, other than the question I asked, which is, was there were you meeting for a specific objective? And that's where TERF Collective is different. We're meeting just, like I said, the original post was, I want to hang out with TERFs on a video call once a week. And that's what launched us. That's what we do. We like to hang out. If a sister has an idea, throw it into the group. Other sisters will stop by and tell you what we think.
You're not taking notes. You're not taking notes and sending out notes or anything.
We're not doing emails. We're not calling nobody.
No.
We're not.
No. I love it, girl. I love
the actions that we undertake. The nature of the actions we're trying to undertake are individualized.
Let's talk
remote
about that.
actions.
Let's talk about that. You use in your bio, you were talking about guerrilla activism. What is that to you? What does that mean?
So There was this group that has since disbanded, but I took inspiration from, and I have to look again to make sure I know where they were originated. I because I don't know if they came from New Zealand or they came from Australia, but they were the Untamable Shrews, and they did a bunch of. Are you familiar? I feel like you are, right? Maybe you can tell me about them because you might be much more in the know.
Well, I don't know much anymore, but yeah, they were like a wave.
They were a wave, right? They were a wave.
Yeah, I totally remember them.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just to give an example of the kind of thing that we're thinking.
So like, stickers, stencils.
So Untamable Shrews is this group of, I guess I could call them radical feminists, though I wasn't a member, obviously, and I cannot speak for them, although I did follow them on social media, I followed their work, and they would go around doing street art, doing basically radical feminist street art, stickers and art against, treating women like commodities, against rape, against porn, against, all these things. I totally
remember that, and it was, I think, it was New Zealand. It's New Zealand.
Was it then? Yeah.
Cool. And so does the TERF Collective have stickers that you're producing? And if so,
no, we're not producing our own stickers. I'm just saying, we're inspired by that sense of do it everywhere, do it alone, not necessarily alone. Hopefully if you have a buddy with you, that's ideal. But what I'm saying is that sense of we can be remote, we can be cells. We can be rad femme cells. Work where you are.
Like that. I really like that. That harkens to Starhawk's vision of activism and organizing. Are you familiar with the work of Starhawk?
No, ma'am.
She's a witch who lives in the Bay Area. Unfortunately, she is an apologist for the trans cult. But just because...
Oh, I have looked up this person before.
But she's written some wonderful books on organizing anti-capitalist protest organizing.
Oh, I remember now. I looked.
She talks about cells, decentralized organizing.
Yes.
Affinity groups, groups of 5 or 6 women that can, make their own autonomous decisions about what it says on the sticker, or whatever. And then, but it gets tricky when it's like, oh, well, can I make a sticker that says TERF Collective and put it up without getting the permission of all 236 women?
The way TERF Collective works, we can't stop you. Okay. I'm not sure I want to. Certainly, if you bring your idea to the group, then we'll give you our opinions. But let's say you went out and you did your own thing and you wrote TERF Collective on it. How could I control that? I wouldn't even know about it.
We're autonomous groups. We're autonomous little cells. And hey, I like.
If you're one of us, you're one of us, and that's it.
So much. And let's talk more about that. About affinity groups and autonomous cells in organizing a social movement, a revolution like you and I are working on here. So those cells, they also may end up having some tension. There may be a problem, which I've had an experience of that. And it was in an informal group with no bylaws, much like, the TERF Collective, although it was a small group because it was Wisconsin based. And there's like this liberal inclination towards you have to have every member of the collective's permission to do something before maybe 2 members of the collective who have the motivation and the time to do it, go and do it. So then other 3 members, do they get to say at the last minute, oh, hey, we don't like that project, we don't agree, and then they derail it because of consensus, And I'm like, oh, no. I believe in autonomy all the way. And if you do the work, it's your project.
Yeah,
if you're not doing the work, it's not your project.
Not your project.
You know what I mean? And so
I always repeat this. I use this expression everywhere. Nobody can understand me because it's in Spanish. But in Spanish, we say, no hace ni deja ser. You don't do and don't let others do either. But I don't believe in that, right? So if you're ready, willing, and able to go on something, go on it.
Right. And si no estás, si no quieres estar con esa persona, con esa gente, entonces adiós. Adiós, amiga.
Lárgate.
You know, and yeah, cuídate. It's like,
Lárgate.
oh, lárgate. Y cuídate. Yo, mi
Yes, yeah.
Cuídate también. But,
yeah, cuídate también. Ve con Dios.
Sí. Oh, cool. I wasn't sure if you spoke Spanish. Hablo español, pero esta entrevista estamos haciendo en inglés, pero...
Yeah, yo tampoco no lo pudiera hacer en español. Mi español no me rinde. I don't know enough to do a full interview on radical
I mean, so fun. I love it. I love it. I love it. Sometime when we're in person next time, because I know we'll see each other, we should just, hablar un poco.
Sí podemos.
So, but getting back to cells and autonomy and affinity groups and cutting back on horizontal hostility and like controlling manipulative behaviors and lifting up behaviors that allow everyone to shine, every sister a star, right? Like that's another thing that because we all have the desire to, that's what this movement is about, is us expressing our voices, expressing ourselves. Like Mary Daly talks about women in particular are in our subordinated role in patriarchy, we diminish the self. And we're not allowed to actualize ourselves as physicists and biologists and bike mechanics and musicians and all of these areas of like civic life, politicians, where we're excluded and we don't get to actualize ourselves, and I think a lot of what feminism and women's liberation is about is giving women the space to be themselves and to not be threatened by that another sister's shining light is not going to diminish your light, that's...
Or maybe it's, maybe your wave is yet to come. I don't know, I mean, it's a complicated thing. It's a complicated question. The issue of jealousy, I guess, is a difficult one. It's one, I guess I rather just I'll be honest with you, I rather just put it on my head and not really think too much about it, because you sense it and you see it, and I don't have an answer. I don't even have an analysis around it. So yeah, I don't know. My answer to this, what you're talking about, somebody's efforts, so far at Collective, the way it's taken shape is, so I came up with this idea to do quarter flyers, targeting target stores, having gotten the idea from stumbling upon, just in my surfing the internet, a study that was released, I think in 2018, that showed an increase in sexual assault in Target stores' bathrooms since they imposed a gender-neutral bathroom policy. I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting if the women that shop at Target knew about this? So we came up with these quarter flyers. There's a QR code that links you to the study. Wrote TERF Collective in tiny text right next to the QR code in case there's a TERF out there and wants to find us, come find us. And then we're going around now. It's already been done out on the West Coast. Now it's been done on the East Coast. We're taking it to Twitter. We're trying to distribute it across Facebook. This is like a brand new effort, a brand new initiative, but people have interest. Point being, if a sister really didn't like the idea, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it.
Exactly.
That's the kind of actions that I'm trying to bring forth is, if you like it and you think it needs adjustments, please bring those forward. We're happy to hear you. We're happy to incorporate anything. We love a brilliant idea. But if you just are like irritated, it irks your soul, you think it's corny, you think it's whack, whatever, there's no obligation for you to partake.
Yeah.
And you can catch the next wave. Maybe you'll come up with the next wave. Like, right. I don't like that idea. I think, what about we do this instead? And then we all run over there and do that too. There's exactly. No problems.
I fully agree with that. And
if you don't want to print, 40 sheets of this, cut them up and take them to the church, then don't.
And that doesn't mean then that you aren't included in the next thing. You can come back and
you can be the superstar of the next thing.
right.
Like, for
I
all
just
we
feel
know, you
like
have
what
like
you're
the best
describing-
idea in your mind.
I feel like what you're describing is a horizontal view of organizing instead of a hierarchical view of organizing.
That's what we're trying.
And it feels so familiar and so elusive at the same time, being an American citizen, just to like be completely honest. Because, you know, the end of anarchy is not chaos, it's civil society. In a true anarchist vision, it's people get along, not because of rules and regulations, but because we've cultivated our best selves. And we've done that by looking on each other in a horizontal way and sharing power and having brotherhood, sisterhood in our case, obviously. But, you know, it's just, and I feel like women are the ones who are best equipped to model this kind of power, to model the type of power that is shared and diminishes the hierarchies that sometimes will naturally occur. I mean, as an anarchist, I'm not against all hierarchies. I feel, you know, like women, I think, should be in charge of birthing and babies, and that's a natural.
Well, it's like Noam Chomsky says, you know, it just has to, what's the term he uses? Authority just has to justify itself. It's not against all authority just to be against all authority, but it's against unjustified and unsubstantiated exercise of authority.
Right. And that those hierarchies that emerge are specialized. They're not about the essential being of anybody. It's like, if you're a master gardener and you know that you plant this plant next to this one because they'll help each other grow, well, you then have a hierarchy of knowledge that you may teach to someone else who doesn't. And it's rotating, and you share that. And even that, I feel, those natural hierarchies that emerge, they're flexible. But in the case of women being hierarchically, I think in a natural way, should be in charge of birth and babies and how we, you know, form that hearth with our offspring. That to me is a hierarchy that's been subverted in a really anti-natural, really horrible way, that's put men in charge of our bodies, our birth, our babies, etc. And whoa, you know, so I don't know, like in terms of hierarchy, I could see having, in the ideal situation, if we were able to spin and weave this, 100 years of women being in charge of all of society. I mean, 100 years, so that we could repair, take that 100 years to repair, because I think that's about how long it might take, you know, if women really were in charge, and and some might say a rightful place, you know, because if we're in charge of birthing and babies and the upbringing of babies, that's a lot of power. It really is. But it's righteous, it's rightful power. In my opinion, it's rightful power. You know, you catching that onda conmigo?
Yeah, I think so. And I think like we're at a really good place right now where the imminent issue is, what is the distinction between males and females, and what makes the female class, what is important, what about it is, you know what I mean, what makes it distinct from men, because men seem to have forgotten what it is that we do exactly around here. So I would say what's important right now is bringing, you know, and that's like such a great, this is like, there's so much like effervescence right now around this, because we just need to get, you know, expand the consciousness about what it is that makes females important to every female that seems to not exactly recognize it right now. I think soon, once we get more women gender critical, we can start teaching them all these other things about radical feminism. Once you become gender critical, that's like your gateway. You know what I mean? Then you
It
start
really is.
really rethinking
You know,
everything.
you
So
might know
this,
this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
no, I
I'm
was going to say,
interrupting.
so this trans rights explosion is like a real problem, but it also could be a real solution if we
Right.
lean into it the right
Right.
way.
And you are, and like in the labor movement, because of your leftist background, you've probably heard this slogan, and that is that the boss is the best organizer, right?
Yeah.
Because he does something heinous, and that's how I feel about trans activism. It's like they're so ridiculous, like with this thing with Hubbard. What is his first name? It's like Melissa.
Laurel Hubbard.
Laurel or whatever. I just want to call him Hubbard. I don't want to call him by some female first name. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just getting to of grandiose, very ridiculous proportions. And it's like, come on, people, is this what we want our society to be like?
We're gonna peak the world this summer, dude. This is TERF Girl summer. We're gonna peak everybody. I don't know. I don't know if I have reason to be pumped, but I am. Like,
are you going to Michigan this summer?
We'll see.
You should come. Family reunion, MFR. You should come. Big Mouth Girl. You would love Big Mouth Girl. It's going to be on the land.
It's just all this travel is like so expensive. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
Look at your face.
Well, let's talk. Let's talk. Yeah. Okay. Michigan, is the homeland.
I know it is.
Have you ever been there? Have you been there yet? No. Okay, cool. And I mean that like in terms of the land, and like there's so much, women have their ashes scattered there, and I don't know, so much history there. And near the Great Lakes, near Lake Michigan, and I'm going to be riding my bicycle actually along the coast between Big Mouth Girl and the Pines is what we call it, the Pines, the glorious Pines. So from the ferns to the pines, because the land, it's like different ecosystem, because you have a lot of different microclimates on any coast. And
right.
And Michigan is more, Mishfest is more inland. And then we go along the coast, and then we get to then we go inland again, and we get to the pines because it's on a pine tree farm. And I've never done a bicycle ride between two festivals before. Like, it just feels so joyful. Like this summer feels like my activism. And remember earlier how I was saying fun is we have to take it seriously. Like, because if you aren't having fun, people won't join the movement. They won't stay for long unless they're like troopers like myself. And I stay way too long in bad situations because I'm like, gotta make it through because it's just so important and for the cause, the beautiful cause, as Emma Goldman said. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an anarchist. What about freedom of association? There's all these other people over here. I can go organize with them instead, and I don't need to be in this group. You know what I mean? If that's how they're rolling, that ain't my group, and it's cool. They're cool. I'm cool. They do their thing. I'm doing diversity of tactics. Woo, mwah. And, I try to not to simplify it too much, but that's what it feels like this summer, though. It does. It just feels.
But at the same time, I don't want, I'm not the only sister sitting at home that's a low wage earner that can't really travel to things. And I think, we really, that's where I come in. To try to make a space and make room for sisters that really can't travel. And we're so happy for you. We love to see like the pictures. We love to hear your stories. But some of us just can't make it. And so we need to create spaces and opportunities for sisters that can't go to participate from home and feel included from home. And hopefully that's something I can help offer.
Absolutely, Jessica. And also, I know that these organizations like Big Mouth Girl and MFR have scholarships, for low-income women and ways of getting women in work trades. And, that's been a part of Michigan culture from the very beginning, is acknowledging socioeconomic differences and mitigating them. And in order to have a more, like, Mishfest in its heyday, and I got to see it in its heyday. I went for the first time, and you're right, it's a privilege, and
even time, and some women just aren't that mobile. Some women, a friend recently brought up an issue that I really wasn't on my radar because it's not something I suffer from. But if you're on maintenance medication, specifically for recovering addiction or any other kind of very serious maintenance things, you're not going to travel.
Well, let me tell you, if you dig into Mishfest history, you will find that this was a big conversation from beginning until the very end throughout the 40 years.
That's very interesting.
They created this thing called DART, which was, I don't remember what it stood for, but it was like an acronym for women with disabilities, something, ART, so for women who have medicines that they have to take, wheelchairs even, and it was in the woods, Jessica. That's why Mishfest was so powerful, is because, and why it was shut down, is because women did it on their own.
Yeah.
Any barrier to, and they would have 5 stages at their heyday. I mean, a day stage, a night stage, different parts of the woods. You'd go in and it was a rock and roll concert. There was like glow sticks hanging from on the trails and jolly women just running around and dancing and having so much fun. I mean, it changed us. It changed us.
No, I believe it. I believe it.
And yes, your TERF nights have that feeling. And I am really glad that Mishfest culture has always cultivated that level playing field attitude of, oh, sister, you work, you've got 2 kids, you've got a disability, you've got all these barriers to you coming here. We're going to pull you in. We're going to bring you here. And I feel that way about you, Jessica. We should, I mean, there's a way if you, I don't know, let's not totally talk about it too much, but like, I'd love to see you at Michigan this summer. And there may be ways, to get you there.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
If you could get it off from work, if you could get it off.
Not from lack of wanting. Yeah, I don't know, we'll talk about it. I just hadn't really, I don't know, I hadn't really thought about it just yet, but you're making a good case.
I mean, the campfires alone are amazing, Jessica. And it's okay, I know, and you are, like I said, I love the TERF Collective and TERF time and everything, but like being around a campfire with the sparks flying and one lands on your face and you feel it, and you see the sister across the fire from you and the smoke rising in between, and then, I don't know, we're deep into this interview, so if someone's watching right now, I feel like I can just say this. Sometimes women dance naked around the fire, you know what I mean? Like
that sounds like fun.
And it's so liberating, and we just are so joyful. And that joy, I think, strengthens us to fight the patriarchy and to make it in our day-to-day back in.
Imagine if everyday life was like that.
Well, and we do, that's the thing. And that's the other reason why I think Mishfest was shut down, and all revolutionary movements become threatening, and they, can eventually be shut down by these hierarchical violent forces, women did, like during the Mishfest era, I met some women who would start living together in intentional community months before the actual festival in Michigan, and it became more year round. It became year round for a lot of women. We're actually going to do a show on intentional women's communities, lesbian communities. I just met a woman who is in an intentional women's retirement community in Florida, 500 women living in a community. Who knew? Right? Like I'm like, what? and so those types of communities formed around Mishfest. And that's what patriarchy does not want. They do not want us to have, they didn't even want us to have 1 week, because one of the slogans was, it's just 1 week in August. Why can't we just have 1 week in August and then we're all back in Area 51? Well, that 1 week in August changes you.
Yeah.
And so
it changes everything. Yeah, it changes the way you see everything. It changes the energy you take into your life. Yeah. No, I'm with it. I dig it. Yeah. Well, with that, Thistle, I must go run a TERF time where we will have a very special reading by Agnes Wade, one of the authors in Spinning and Weaving today. So I must get to that.
Oh, that's fantastic. And she also has a piece on the WLRN website that she wrote.
Yes.
That's an in-depth.
That was very moving and that was very powerful.
Biological, a bio piece on her friend Tracy Neal. It's fantastic.
Oh, you're meaning that. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about her interview that she did.
And the interview with her too on WLRN
Yes.
is really good. So that's cool. She's going to be giving a presentation. And it's fantastic to have you on the show, Jessica, and just to get to know you a little bit better. And I'm really excited to cross-pollinate and keep getting out there and turfing with you.
Thanks so much, Thistle.
All right.
Have a great day, okay?
Yeah, you too. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to my June 23rd, 2021 WLRN exclusive interview with Jessica Gonzalez, founder of the TERF Collective. For more information about the TERF Collective, write to terfcollective@gmail.com or search Facebook for the public group called by the same name and private message the moderator. For the record, the word TERF is used as an acronym to mean Totally Excellent Radical Feminist by many members of the WLRN Collective and the TERF Collective. So fear not, sisters. We are not using it to legitimize the false notion of the word trans, though I cannot speak for everyone, of course. Here at the station, we are still celebrating 5 years in your ears of totally excellent radical feminist programming that started way back in 2016. To help us celebrate, go to the merch tab at womensliberationradionews.com and find lots of new celebratory merch options for you to enjoy and to support the station. Thanks for tuning into the original TERF Radio, WLRN. I'm Thistle Pettersen, signing off for now.